Are you living like in a cabin somewhere? I know some people who like to live rustic. Why don't you have heat or hot water? I'm always hot. Like I'm the one, even now in winter, I sleep with the window open because my body runs hot. See? Towel. I feel like I'm in a fight. Okay. All right. Yeah, -6 is really cold. We do Fahrenheit here. You guys do. Dolly does Celsius. So when she tells me the temperature, she says it's 19 degrees. I'm like, what? No. What do you say? Like it's 6. It's 6 degrees. I'm like, are you kidding? It's like, no. That's Celsius. So okay, in this country, we do Fahrenheit. So we're the only country that has our own temperature and our own form of measurement, like miles. We don't do kilometers and we don't do Celsius. Although those make more sense, the U.S. is very particular about that kind of thing. 16, yeah. Oh, so Linda, you're close to me, so forget it. You have the same temperature I do. So, minus anything is bad. So I'm gonna go with no. Let's just say no. And it's 4 degrees in Wisconsin, and -12 where Heather is, and 6 where Sammy is. Yeah, you guys know. -2 degrees, but that's Celsius. What is -2 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
28.
Well, like 20 something, yeah. Okay, that's doable. But when we get to 0 Fahrenheit, you guys are like, what, -32? 0 Fahrenheit? What is that? Some ungodly number.
Like that.
Yeah, it's some scary number. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Bad. Hey, Jim, welcome. Jim is living in Tampa, but from Queens. I'm in Jackson Heights, Jim. So it's kind of like Central Queens. It's one of the most kind of melting pot neighborhoods of Queens because we have everything, like almost every nationality. Hello, Paige. Welcome. Yeah, I remember the conversion. I remember the formula was like 9/5 or something. So it's been a while since I've had to do that. I did it in school a lot. 36 is doable, Laura, for sure. All right, so let's continue some of these updates. You guys are waiting. So I know Jeanette, she's not here today, but I'll put it out there. The next audiobook, which is Divine Intervention, if I'm not mistaken, Divine Intervention, yes. The next audiobook, I handed over the script to Kevin a few days ago. So he's prepping it up. He's getting it ready. I'm going to say, what is usually the time from Kevin to publication? 2 months? So 2 months. So early next year. Early this year. Wow, I'm still in 2021. Early this year. So like end of February, March, I want to say, for Divine Intervention. It'll be out in audio. And welcome back, YouTube. Sorry, it was glitching. Yeah, I don't mind the winter. I'm like, even in the winter, I'll wear shorts, even though I'm wearing like sweatpants, but I'll wear shorts in the winter. I don't mind the winter. My body naturally runs from desert to inferno. That's usually where it is. So you can imagine my summers. But even negative degrees, no, pass. So the next audiobook we have is going to be Divine Intervention. I'm going to say March.
Yes.
March. My head of operations says March, so March. Okay. We also have Sepia 5 I'm working on. There have been no snippets for Sepia 5 because it's her last book, the last book in the series, and I've kind of wanted to keep it a little close to the chest, I guess. So I haven't released any snippets for Sepia 5. For me, the story, I told Dolly the other day, because she does get to see the story, because, you know, she's right here, and she gives me the look. So I tell her I feel like the story is kind of like ambling, going, but she says it's moving. The Sepia release date will be February. I get it back. So end of Feb, Sepia release. And M&S 15, also end of Feb. They're gonna be like this, boom, boom. It's gonna be really close. So yeah, those two, Sepia Demon and Stormblood, are both end of February. The Way of Bug might be almost around the same time, if not early March. So it's gonna be like really 1, 2, 3, like that. So just if 2 years, it's almost just 2 more months, and then it's done. Okay. I was reading some posts on people who were complaining about authors who take too long. It was like, yeah, I kind of fall into that with Sepia. So, but see, I'm making the wait for Sepia pay off, because you're waiting for Sepia and you're getting Monty Strong and you're getting the Way of Bug. So it's almost a 3 for 1. So let's talk about that a little bit, writing 3 stories at once. So if you're an author or if you're a creative person, you want to pace yourself when you do your creative endeavors. Yes, thanks. I feel much better, Chris, for being forgiven. You want to pace yourself when you're doing your creative stuff. So you don't want to take on too much at once. It's taken me a while to work up to doing more than one story at a time, because it requires a lot from your brain, you know? So if you're going to do some creative endeavor, understand what your body allows you to do. I'm freezing. Oh no, hope I'm not free. I feel like I'm doing fine here. It might be on your end, Lynn. I'm sorry. Or it might just be that it's so cold in the Bronx that, you know. So, but let me know if the tech happens a lot. I think I'm okay on my end. So it might be happening. So yeah, I know, Chris. So if you're going to do more than one creative endeavor at a time, make sure you make time to rest your brain, rest your body, maintain your health. Authors, especially writers, are notorious for being in bad health because they sit all day, and so they don't actually do anything with their bodies. So you want to, if you're going to be involved in anything creative, you want to take care of both, not just your mind, not just your brain, but your body as well. If your body is in horrible shape, you're not going to be able to be as creative as you want to be or as you wish to be, because your body is a wreck. So you have to take care of the body. And this is excluding like actual health issues and age and accidents and stuff like that you've had coming up in your life. Just talking in general, take care of your body, go for a walk, try to eat healthy, especially if you're creative, because the world needs your creativity. And so, you know, no one can be or do the things that you do. So you have to be able to just take care of your body so that your brain can do what it wants to do. Was being at school, jump from subjects every hour. Yeah, it's like in school, when you had school and you would go from class to class to class to class, it's a different subject. You have to switch gears every hour, right? You be in social studies, then you go to math, then you go to science, then you go to English, and you had to switch those gears. So we can do it. With writing, it's kind of the same thing, except that you're doing different stories. And so it's going like from story to story. And you want to have a kind of way to just keeping it up. So don't get so caught up in the writing or in whatever creative endeavor you're doing that you neglect your body, because it might work for you in the short term, but then later on, you're going to reap what you sow. And so then you won't be able to be as creative as you want to be. Like there's stories of writers who could only write when they would drink, you know, and they would write and then they'd end up with like liver issues, or could only write, you know, under the influence of certain chemicals. So, and then later on they would have long-term effects from abusing your body. So don't abuse your body. Take care of your body. And even if it means just going out for a walk, go out for a walk, you know? I'm glad it's helping, Linda. You switched up to your iPod. Yeah. No. I don't want to hear you guys can't take care of your body. I'm sweating? Wow, hold on. My head of makeup is telling me I'm sweating. Okay, better? Awesome. I don't want to reflect too much light and blind you guys. So I started with writing Sepia. Then I said, okay, I'm going to write Stormblood because I want to get the next Mountain Strong out too, right? And then Bug started annoying the heck out of me. And so I had to, I said, okay, I made a calculation, because Bug, the Way of Bug, or the Gatekeeper stories are novellas, right? They're not novels, at least not yet. So I said I could do Sepia, I could do Stormblood, and I can kind of fit The Way of Bug in there as a novella because there's really no deadline for that one. I could just kind of write it as I go along. And it's turning out pretty interesting. It's turning out fun. The Way of Bug is fun. So my day goes, I write Sepia, I do the word quota for Sepia. That by far is the hardest one to write because it's kind of having to go back into that world. And it seems, I won't say it's difficult, it's just not as comfortable as it used to be, I guess. Then I write Mountain Strong, which is like, I can spend the rest of the day writing Mountain Strong because it's Mountain Strong. And then I'll jump into The Gatekeepers, The Way of the Bug. And that's another one where, because it's so recent and because the character is so much fun, and it's interesting to do noir, neo-noir with a female lead because it's not done that often. And Bug is a very interesting character. And so she comes across differently than Porter does. And she's much more menacing than Porter is, right? So she has thoughts like, I think I put it in a snippet. She has thoughts about like ripping throats out and things like that, refraining from like, slashing people in half. And she doesn't voice these things, but you can hear it in her conversation. It's the undertone, it's the subtext, right? So it allows for writing the three stories. It allows because they're so different, yet they're all kind of fun. So there you have it. So if you're going to encounter and jump into many creative things, give yourself time to adjust to it. Write one story at a time, but you can build up to writing more than one story. Isaac Asimov used to have several, I know I've said it before, he used to have several typewriters around the house with different stories at different points in the story. And he would go from typewriter to typewriter and can work on each story. Now you wouldn't need to do that because you have computers. So back in the day, that's how he did it. And he wrote some 500 and something stories and books combined in his life. It's incredibly prolific. So yes, Chris, Porter is the mild guy. That's surprising just to think that he's the mild one. But he is, because Porter is the foil to Bug. He's the one that keeps Bug in check. And now that's going to have to be Corman, who's going to have to keep Bug in check. And we get to find out what happened to Porter over the course of the story. So that'll be fun. What is this? What is Team Peanut? What are we doing with Team Peanut here? With my notes, because every episode we have notes, right? So I'm saying Team Peanut. I don't know what I'm going to do with Team Peanut. Oh, yeah, if you haven't read Peanut's story, or you want to know what happens in Peanut's story, you need to join Team Peanut. And the only way to join Team Peanut is to join Patreon. So I keep hearing good things about Peanut from other people, not just from the Peanut Gallery, but I keep hearing good things about Peanut, the story, from a lot of people who've read it. So if you want to hear more about Peanut, if you want to learn more about Peanut, you need to join Patreon. So go join Patreon and you'll find out about not only Peanut, but it's like, how many stories is it now? 3, 4, 5 stories? 4, 5, I'm getting fingers. 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. So that's starting to look like ASL. So, I don't know about Nixie and Bug joining together. That would be dangerous. So that would be highly dangerous to any population that they're in. Yeah, Audrey, I grew up reading, my first Asimov story was Foundation, but then I read almost everything that he wrote. And I didn't read the papers that he wrote because they were scientific papers and he was a university professor. But I did read most of his sci-fi. I read it because when he was writing it, I was very, very, very young. And I want to say that reading his books helped me understand deeper works later on, because he didn't write for children. He wrote at a level where you had to have some knowledge of science, and he never dumbed it down. In fact, he always went a little bit further ahead. He was very forward thinking. So he really was ahead of his time. But I was able to jump into other, what was considered harder works because of what I did reading his books. Heinlein was also excellent. Heinlein was another fantastic author. So, yeah. Let's see. Weight loss cannot be recovered. I'm going to disagree there. You can recover it, but it depends on how you recover it. You know, Arthur C. Clarke was awesome too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Arthur C. Clarke used a lot of hard science. Well, he was considered in many cases a hard science fiction writer, but a lot of the theories that he posited or he put in his books were really used in reality, in life. You know, so most of what these authors did or wrote or projected or they kind of perceived didn't happen until much later or until after their death. I mean, even look at Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek. You know, no one thought that you'd have this device where you could just talk to people anywhere, you know? And now you have a cell phone that does exactly that. So these things, you know, it seems, they always say science, it's only science fiction until it begins to happen. So, Gene Roddenberry had a lot of devices in Star Trek that are now actually things that exist. So it's amazing. I used to really enjoy hard science, but I also grew up in the Star Trek era, and it wasn't until later on, you know, when Star Wars came out, that it was more space opera. But Star Trek really, really kind of cultivated that love for hard science. And Paul Anderson, yes, Paul Anderson, Jim, excellent. I, Robot with Asimov. Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, Nyx can't get Bug as a companion, so that's not gonna work See, I don't think Nyx and Acheron need a companion. I think they're fine with each other. If they get a companion, the city wouldn't survive. I agree, Chris. You read Sci-Fi if you want to know the possible future. I used to get this magazine when I was young. Of course, I was the odd child out. This magazine called Omni. Those of us who are really old will recognize that magazine. But I used to read Omni just to see what was coming up in science. David Niven was another one, which was excellent writer. Yeah, there was so many good ones that I read growing up that when I think back now, I'm like, yeah, those stories were way ahead of me when I was reading them. Yeah. But I used to get Omni. I subscribed to Omni. I saved money to subscribe to Omni because Omni was the magazine to read. It was amazing. So, and then I would share it with all my friends. They would read it together. We were what's considered the geeks and the nerds, you know, but it was a great magazine. Yes, definitely dating ourselves. Analog before Omni, for sure. Yeah. Larry Niven was a fantastic author. Larry Niven. David Niven was, I think, the actor. So I think but the name Niven is what stuck out to me. So yes, both awesome. David Niven was a great actor, and Larry Niven was a great author. So I'm thinking Andre Norton is coming to mind too. So there are a few who stuck out in that era. Yeah. Yeah, I think you might be misquoting that a bit, Davina, but yes, for sure, I agree. And actually and control it too. All right, so let me continue with the updates, even though I kind of touched on each one. So Way of the Bug is going to come out at some point in February, March, I'm going to say. And Stormblood is at the end of Feb. So yeah. Yeah, Andre Norton, excellent writing. So so what I did from the Sci-Fi, then I went into things like Piers Anthony. And Piers Anthony, with the Xanth series, was, yes, Andre Norton is a female, by the way. But I think it's because of I think it still exists to today, the stigma of women writing in sci-fi. She had to use I guess it's kind of an androgynous name, where it sounds like a male, Andre Norton, but she's a fantastic writer. So Andre Norton wrote, and then I went from sci-fi to fantasy, and did, you know, obviously Lord of the Rings, but I really enjoyed Xanth. Xanth was fantastic, and what caught me about Xanth, or what really interested me about Xanth, was the titles of the books were awesome. Because they always had this double entendre. And it was a fantastic way that Piers would really catch you in his book, in the Xanth series. I think the Zan series, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Zan series is still going. And this is a series that was like big when I was young. And I think Piers has continued writing it. If Piers is still here, I haven't read a Zan book in like decades. So, but I think it's still going. Jim says urban fantasy is a new interest for me. Yes, it was a new interest for me, but it wasn't until, I want to say about 10 years ago, I really got into urban fantasy. Maybe 12, 15 years ago, I got into urban fantasy. So, I mean, I've always been interested in some sort of urban fantasy because through the comics and through everything else, but really, really interested in reading it and then writing it, I want to say about 12, 15 years ago. Yes, Chris, Piers did open things up. Let's see what Davian said. The meek, when they clearly meant the geek. Yeah, maybe the word wasn't around back then when they wrote the meek. So they used meek instead of geek. Well, David Niven was, I kind of grew up watching David Niven, Wendy, and David Niven was a fantastic actor. Let's see. Yes, Paige. If you love puns, Piers Anthony and the Zan series is perfect for you. Yeah. Why would it's, well, I don't know. Omni, for me, Omni's always been the magazine. Aside from the prefix that it means kind of all, but it's always been the magazine for me. Omni was a fantastic magazine that exploded your mind. So I never got into the Space Tyrant series. It was always Xanth for me, Cynthia. But yeah. Yeah, well, geeks used to be considered, let's see, freaks, I want to say, or those strange ones. Really until the advent of computing. When computing started becoming really big and really instrumental to daily life, that it was until then that geeks started really becoming mainstream. Like, because the first people that gravitated, the early adopters of tech, were the geeks, right? So we were the ones taking apart computers. We were the ones learning code. We were the ones learning computing languages. I mean, I still remember I had to study COBOL, Pascal, Fortran. I picked up all these languages in addition to DOS and BASIC, right? So all of us adopted this tech early, and all of us became the geeks that were accepted into the mainstream. Let's see. Apprentice Adept. Oh no, most of these books, most of the Xanth books, if not all, was amazing. Oh, hello Sharon, welcome. Good morning / afternoon where I am now. So, let's see, we've touched on so many subjects in a very short time. And it's only 12:05, we got plenty of time. So, going back to the general, I guess, the umbrella topic there is, if you're going to be creative, you've got to take care of yourself, right? And I know some of us have pre-existing conditions, right? Like some of us are older, some of us really beat up our bodies when we were younger. Nerds, yes, Janine, that's what we were, nerds. I'm still a nerd, so I'm proud to be one, right? No, that's not a sidetrack at all because it's all connected, right, Chris? So a lot of these authors that we're mentioning now, if you remember when you were younger, I would wait for one book a year. That's not the norm any longer. Now authors are writing 3, 4, 5 books a year. If you've ever written a book or taken on any serious creative activity, you realize that it takes it out of you. It really taxes you physically and it taxes you mentally. So basically what I want you to understand is that yes, you can set your goals to do a lot of creative things, but you don't lose sight of the fact that you've got to take care of your body too. You know, you've got to take care of the vehicle that you're going through in this universe to be as creative as you're going to be, right? So that's the key. I mean, I remember reading all these books. I remember waiting years in between each book. And now I know authors who put out, I want to say 4, 5, 6 books a year, like big books too, you know? So let's see. I've always been more of a fantasy horror than fantasy sci-fi. I read horror. I didn't read that much horror growing up. I read Lovecraft. I read Moorcock, which is considered like, I guess, dark fantasy with Eric of Melniboné, right? But I didn't read much horror. I read Stephen King. I remember reading The Stand twice, but I didn't get into much horror. Coons, I used to like Coons, but I didn't get into really, really, really dark horror much. But sci-fi and fantasy I did get into a lot growing up. Yeah. Oh, I see, Paige. Yeah, but that's the geeks. That's the terminology, the strict terminology when it came to like circus and sideshow and things like that. I think that has changed dramatically in the present time. Geeks, right? It's a more accepted term. Yeah, Kathy. I think that's a good thing. Not that you're a slow reader, but that authors write so much now, because that means that you can wait for your author or the authors that you enjoy. You can wait for them to write, and then because there are so many authors writing fast. Welcome, Robert. That you can pick up different series and read different authors while the authors that you enjoy are writing at their own pace. And so you never, as a reader, you're never left without something to read, which is amazing. I mean, I know what it's like to wait. I mean, a lot of you do too. I know what it's like to wait a year, year and a half, 2 years, not because the author is slow, but because back then it wasn't so much self-publishing, but because the publishing houses had schedules and it would release it at a slow pace. So yeah, so it's also, you know, a good thing to have a lot of authors write fast, because you get to have so many things to read, and your TBR list just grows, you know. Yeah, Paige, I know. Sometimes it seems like we're in cahoots, as they say, because I know a lot of authors release at the same time, and so we have what's, I guess, like a shared beta reader team, an ARC team, and so all these books are dropping at the same time. Then they drop into their ARCs, and now you have to read several books at once. And I understand reading an ARC or an ARC, being part of an ARC, is not easy, because you're not just reading. If it was just reading for pleasure, easy. You're not just reading. You're reading to kind of analyze. You're deconstructing. You're helping the book get better. Like I always say of the art team, you're taking a good story and you're making it a great story. And so that kind of reading is very different from just reading for pleasure, you know? So I empathize with you guys with the art. My art is amazing, but I know that you also read for a lot of the authors that I know. And so sometimes you're pulled and tugged in different directions. I apologize. I can't really do much with that because we don't coordinate our release schedules. We just release when we release. But it does happen. Like I know when I release books to the art, they sometimes clash with other authors. And I always tell you, listen, if you're already reading a book, finish that. And I always have another art. So don't ever feel bad that you can't do an art for me, because I'm always going to have another art that you can be part of. And I know that I respect the fact that you're reading for another author. You know, I'll try not to break them, Jim. Let's see. Am I looking into movie, TV for books or series? If I love to have Montague and Strong be either Netflix original, Amazon, but I'm really concerned of how they would cast it, because you'd have to get really good actors for it in order to sell it well. I think it would be better off as an animated, because then you can pull off the magic really well too. Although with CGI now, but again, it's going into budget. I love to have it done, like sort of how like The Witch has been done, right, Audrey? But it's tough. It's tough from book to actual series. It's a long road, but it's doable because we see it done all the time, right? Yeah, it does feel like that Twilight Zone where at the end, Burgess Meredith breaks his glasses, and now he has all the time in the world, all the books to read, and no glasses, right? That's a good reference, Jim. Only those of us who are really old get that one. Linda, I agree. If you're still with a traditional publisher, it's a slow process. Benedict Japta just released his last book called Risen. But he had written it because I had spoken to him, and he had written it he had finished it a while ago, but like you said, the publisher didn't release it until this past December. Because I wrote to him and I said, okay, where's the next book? I'm like, you guys, where's the next book? And he says, well, it's written, but it's in the schedule and it can't be released until the end of the year. And I was like, ugh. So when you're in those contracts like that, the author really can't do anything about it. Just like the same thing with the covers, you know? It's like they don't choose the covers. I mostly went self-publishing for that reason because I'm a control freak and I wanted to be able to pick my covers and control when the books would go out. So, and traditional publishing doesn't let you do that at all. Yes, Wendy, soon. Let's see. Janine says, I do find some of the prolific authors have become formulaic. Yes. I think that's one of the I don't know. It's one of the pitfalls, Janine, of writing first of all, writing a long series, it's a pitfall, and writing prolific books, being prolific, writing prolifically, right? Sometimes the author feels like they have to put out so many books, and then it does become formulaic. It becomes very pulpy. If you go back to the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 1930s, 40s, 50s, the Pulp Fiction era, a lot of the stories are formulaic. It really was a formula. And so they were just but they were doing that because they needed to survive. They were writing to put food on the table. What happens with authors now sometimes, not all, sometimes, is that if they're writing a long series, they get into this, I want to say kind of like a rut, and it does become formulaic. Try not to do it, but because they want to get the books out or they want to write to market or whatever, do one rapid release, things like that, it can happen. It's something to really be careful to not let happen, but sometimes it can happen. One of the reasons why I write in different stories, genres, is to prevent that from happening. Because I don't want to become formulaic ever, you know? An author should want to be unpredictable in that regard. And it's what makes the stories interesting, you know? So yeah, you've noticed it. Yeah, Rick, I've never read any of Rick's books because I just haven't had the time, but I have them all. I just haven't read them. I do support my fellow indies that way. And I think the story is great. I mean, of Bill, the vampire. So yeah. So what you want to do, Janine, as an author, I mean, not you as an author, but in general, is you want to make sure that the stories are distinct, not formulaic. But I want to kind of use Agatha Christie as an example. When she wrote Hercule Poirot, the stories are not formulaic, but there is a formula because she's writing in mystery. Hello, Orlando, my namesake. Hope you're feeling better. So it's not formulaic, but there is a formula in terms of, like, let's say mystery, like Agatha Christie, you know, and no one can accuse her of being, you know, formulaic because her character was so awesome and each story was different. And she also wrote I think even she wanted to get away a little bit from Hercule, and then she wrote Miss Marple's. So she kind of stayed in her wheelhouse, but she changed just a bit, you know? And if you're writing in the genre, there's a difference between formula and formulaic. I mean, this could be an episode all in itself, right? And if you're writing in a certain genre, let's say urban fantasy, there are certain things that readers expect in any genre. Like if you're writing romance, they expect the HEA, right? The happily ever after. If you're writing urban fantasy, they're expecting magic in an urban setting. There's certain things that have to be there to say it's this genre. So formulaic and a formula are two very different things. The problem is that as an author, you don't want to form into the formulaic because people can anticipate your book before it ends. And so there you go. You know, so you want to stick to the formula, but add your own unique twist to it. Okay, let's see. Anyone remember the science fiction book club subscription? Yes, Paige, I was part of it. And I think I inundated my home with books when I was younger. Davina says, I'm reading it because the feed is like, it moves fast. Davina says, I only do your art. I wouldn't be able to manage more, but then it can take ages before I get around to reading them. Right. Yeah, I get it. And thank you, Davina. I do appreciate it. Chris says, I quit an author because it was clearly cookie cutter. Yeah, see, when it gets like that, you don't want to read the author any longer because it's, yeah. Audrey, that was my favorite Twilight Zone too. I felt so bad for the Burgess Meredith character at the end because he broke his glasses. But like we found a solution in one of the mob, in one of our Catholic guys who said, just find an optometrist store and just go find glasses that would fit, you know? So, yeah. Yeah, Jack had finished it he finished his series a long time ago, but they didn't release it until December. I just read Risen, it was really good. I won't spoil it for you, Mel. It's really good. You're gonna enjoy it. Really, really enjoy it. Hey, Rick, welcome. Haven't seen Rick in a while. How you doing? I hope everything's going well, Rick. Rick if you haven't picked up Rick's books, you are clearly missing out. So pick up his books. I have them all. I haven't read I read the first one, but I haven't had the time to read them because Rick will understand. But get all his books for sure. Ben wants to know, do I have any cons planned for 2022? That's depending on what the state of this pandemic is in the world. So I usually do 20 books at 50K, but I didn't go to this last year because, it was crazy. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm going next year either. So we again, don't know. Let's see. Wow. This feed is going quick. Oh yeah, Wendy, that would be a great show to have, the formula show. Formula versus formulaic would be the title, because unfortunately a lot of authors fall into that kind of like writing formulaically as opposed to sticking to a formula to stay within a genre, Yeah, Janine, I don't know of any authors personally that do that. Janine is saying she gets that some authors almost seem to publish the same book with a bit of a tweak. I don't know any authors personally that do that, but I have heard that it happens, and I think unfortunately it's either the author has kind of lost the thread or is adhering to a certain schedule, and so what happens is that they need to publish something, and then in an effort to get that out, they'll just kind of put out the same story with a tweak. So usually that requires some revisiting back to the original source material, So, yeah, and like Rick is saying, some people like formulaic, like there's certain fiction that's the same. But it's like Chris was saying about Holmes. You know how a Holmes story is going to go. He's going to be in some kind of lethargy in the beginning or distracted, and he's not going to want to do anything. In the original stories, he used to do drugs and play his violin, and then he'd get a case, and the game would be afoot, and now all of a sudden he's going to be a brilliant detective. And then he solves the story, there's twists, there's turns, but there's a formula to it. And to this day, Holmes is still very popular, and there have been so many revamps of Holmes, So it depends. It depends on formula versus formulaic. Formulaic gets boring. Formula, I would say, is somewhat essential to stay within the genre that you're writing. Every genre has its tropes, and readers expect those tropes. If you're writing sci-fi, space opera, and there are no ships, it's a hard sell because readers expect ships, and they expect sci-fi stuff. So trust me, I could tell you how interesting that was when I was researching for sci-fi. Okay, and that was like, oof, that was work. It's so much great stuff you guys are writing. I know it's the first one of the year, so we're all like, and I want to thank you all for being here today. It's amazing. Geez, yeah, Wendy, you'd have to make that a big show if you're going to do formula versus formulaic, and we can invite a whole bunch of indie authors, excuse me, to have that great discussion, because I think that's a really great discussion. Yeah, Audrey, so in that case, and Audrey's saying that seems to happen when a series goes on too long. Read a 24th book in a series that was almost exactly the same as a previous book. That is, in my opinion, when the author kind of loses the thread. And you should know when a series goes on too long, when that starts to happen, when the books start to resemble each other, it's the series is getting on a little too long, and so you might need to go on a tangent, maybe end the series, but take characters from that series, maybe some of the side characters, and start a different series, a tangential series. Because I've seen a lot of authors do that successfully. You pivot. So you can still stay in that world, but now you're telling different stories. I've kind of done that already without ending the main series. Bye, Trisha. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I like Sherlock's brother too. Mycroft is an excellent character that should have his own. I think Doyle did a good thing there with peppering in Mycroft just enough, but not letting him overpower Holmes, not letting him overpower Sherlock, you know? So, yeah, we'll definitely talk, Wendy, for sure. I think it's a good idea. Get a few authors together. I think it's a good idea in general to get a few authors together to discuss craft. Not many people do it, but especially within a certain genre, it'd be great to have a bunch of authors together to discuss craft and process and just how do you get your stories out and why do you use these tropes as opposed to those tropes. I think it'd be great because you get to see how the authors pick and choose, how they think, what inspires them. Why don't they pick that trope over this trope? Yes, Chris, I think because you want to have a diverse group of authors to discuss a subject like that, like formula versus formulaic. You need a good group of like maybe 5 to 10 authors that could sit down and kind of have like a round table. Yeah, something like that would be great. It's a good way for other authors that are coming up to see, and it's a good way for readers to kind of get an inside behind the scenes look on what's going on, you know? But yeah, like 5, I would say 5 or 3 to 5 authors that are within the same genre but write different kinds of stories. That would be awesome. Let's see. Totally off comic. I love the nods to Dresden throughout. Yes, I used to do that a lot more often, Kelly, in the beginning of the series. I don't do it as much now. I try to keep the Easter eggs to more generic, I want to say, well-known topics, well-known worlds. So the topics, the Easter eggs are still there, but they're much more widely recognized, if you know what I'm referring to. Yeah. Well, Jim, see, but it's not a matter of admitting that being formulaic. It's just like recognizing that it exists and being able to discuss it, you know? But it's good to discuss the topic because there are a lot of authors who are trying to learn, to come up, to start. And it's good to help them avoid becoming formulaic so they can increase their readership. So that would be awesome. All right. We've got about 15 minutes, so let's get to questions. Bye, Davina. Say hello to Ayrton and everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to get to questions, so I can't read the feed on this side. So I'm going to read the feed for the questions over here. All right, let's see. Boom, boom. We said questions from Craig Dragon, who's not here with us. Craig Zimick. He says, question number 1. And I want to give a blanket thank you to all of you for your fantastic questions. Seeing your recent foray into noir, what other categories would you like to try? Okay, first of all, I don't think I jumped into noir. I kind of created a noir adjacent genre type thing with Bullet Ballet. Noir is tough to write, and you can't jump into classic noir without sounding really dated. And so, but if I wanted to try something else, I really don't know. I really can't say, because at this point now I'm just blending genres. Like neo-noir, I don't even know if that's a thing yet. I don't know if I'm starting a genre or if I've just jumped into a genre that exists under a different name. But grimdark would definitely, like grimdark or noir horror. There you go, Jim Hickey. Yeah, noir horror, but horror, horror writing for me would be hard to get into. So I'm going to stick with neo-noir for now. Craig, when you see this, and right now I'm not going to try any other category yet. I'm going to stay there. Thanks for the question, Craig. Techno thrillers would be fun, Rick. I've kind of touched a little bit on that with Gideon Shepherd. I have one story, Sheepdog. That was fun. But we can take that even a little further, for sure. Yeah. Welcome, Malcolm. We shouted you out for joining Patreon earlier today. But techno thriller reminds me of like William Gibson, Neuromancer, that kind of thing, cyberpunk. That's kind of my idea of a techno thriller type story, which is a lot of fun. But again, requires a lot of research, and I'm not in the mood to do like tons of research for an entire different genre right now. All right, Audrey's questions. Let's go. Yeah, Wendy, to answer your question, Noir and UF are cousins. They go hand in hand, like really, they're tightly connected. Yeah, for sure. You can argue that urban fantasy is noir. I don't know if you can argue that noir is urban fantasy. We could definitely argue that urban fantasy is noir. Yeah. Or has noir feeling to it, because a lot of it is set within that world, right? They do blend well. All right, Audrey's questions. Orlando, what is your favorite noir character and why? Oh, geez, let's see. My favorite noir character, I have so many. Well, you guys know, I would say Batman is my favorite noir character because he's a tragic character. At his core, he's tragic. And so, and he can't escape his past, and it forces him to act in a certain way that informs his present and future. And he's cut off from life. So he's kind of caught in this loop of pathos. So very deep analysis of Batman. But that would be my favorite noir character. He's a classic noir character. And he's based on, characters that aren't necessarily noir, but they inform, like the Red Pimpernel, Zorro, Dracula, Holmes. All these different facets kind of came and created, and Bob Kane and Bill Finger created this character, which is deeply flawed. And I think that's what attracts people to the character of Batman, that he's deeply flawed. And so people can relate to that. He resonates, the character resonates with people, So that would be my favorite. Dolly has a question. Dolly, other than Orlando's work, what is your favorite fiction genre?
I only read nonfiction books.
You want to answer that?
I can't help you.
She says she only reads non-fiction books. She can't help you there. Sorry. Yes, Sin City would be modern noir, for sure. Frank Miller is a classic. He definitely fits the mold of noir, Frank Miller. In his writing and in the illustration. It definitely has a noir feel, for sure. Paige says, let's see what Paige said. I missed it because it scrolled past me. I'd say neo-noir, is it new? Yeah, Blade Runner is definitely neo-noir, but it has such a sci-fi feel to it too, And it's almost a category unto itself, Blade Runner. Blade Runner is groundbreaking for sure. All right, Audrey, another question from Audrey. Do you ever dream plot lines? Yes. You're reading Monty and Strong because I dreamt the first chapter. So there you go. Same thing with Bug and Gatekeepers. Those I wouldn't say those came in dreams. Those came more in a fugue state when I was thinking of stuff, and I got blindsided with Gatekeepers. Yeah, Jim is right. Blade Runner feels more dystopian. I would even say a little bit post-apocalyptic, because it's a dark future. So definitely dystopian for sure. Morna says, am I going to paperback Peaches? I don't understand that question, but okay. I don't know what that means. I'm going to paperback Peaches, but okay. Janine says, are your audiobooks only on Audible? Any plans to go to Scribe? Not at the moment, because all my books, the only audiobooks that I've had done are the Monty and Strong books. I think, yeah, anything related to Monty and Strong, and they're all on Audible right now because my narrator works through Audible. Kevin is only on Audible, so I don't know about going to Scribe, and I don't know what that would require, Janine. So I'd have to look into that. We discussed the spirit versus the question comment, Jim. So you know who the spirit is, and you know who the question is. Yeah, he was the model for Rorschach, so Rorschach, as he's called. Yeah. And so I answered Jeanette's question about the Audible for Divine Intervention. To get an Audible for the Gatekeepers, we'd have to do like what we did for Nyx, which is wait until there's enough, because right now they're novellas, so they're short. But wait until there's enough. So by the time I finish novella, we'll have enough for like a book, which is 60K, right? Because they're about 30K each novella. So by the time I finish The Way of Bug, we'll have about 60K. Then maybe we can consider Audible for that. Welcome back, Sharon. Paige says the way Ridley Scott filmed it, he nailed the noir. Oh yeah, no, he definitely nailed noir the way he filmed it, right? Because it looks very noir. But I think the subject matter is more dystopian because the way he depicts the future. But the way it's filmed, I would agree, Paige, it's very noir. It has a very noir feel. And, you know, with the way the characters are and the way the whole story unfolds, it definitely feels like an old type detective story, getting to the bottom of it, behind the replicants and everything, and then finally discovering all of this stuff. I did not see the new Blade Runner, so I can't speak to that one, the one with 2049, with the most recent version of it, but I can speak to the first Blade Runner. I can't speak to the new one because it didn't really call to me. I didn't feel the need. It kind of felt to me like they were trying to build on something that was complete. So I don't know if you guys saw the new Blade Runner. You can let me know how it was. Yeah, Chris, I agree. 3 novellas kind of equal one Audible. 3 novellas. Oh yeah, Paige, for sure. The costuming, the hair, everything was very noir. I bet you if we spoke to Ridley, he would say he was trying to go for a noir feel of the story. Is it really that good, Kathy? I haven't seen it. I can probably pick it up and see it over the weekend. Don't spoil it for me if you've seen it. But I heard it was Again, I'm still thinking on, you know, in my mind, it's like comparing it to the original Blade Runner, and it's unfair because it's a new Blade Runner, but that's just the way we are. I'll compare it to the original. And here's the thing that most authors will tell you. Whenever we watch a movie, we don't just watch a movie. We analyze it as we're watching it. So it's hard for us to watch a movie and say, oh, that part could have been written better, or that's not the way I would have described it. It's hard. We slip into it. It's not that we're doing it intentionally, but we do slip into that in terms of the way our brains work. So as you're watching something, you kind of start going into like writer brain mode. And you start trying to see, oh, I can fix this, or this could be written differently, or they shouldn't have written it that way, and things. It's like watching a movie with a writer. It could be. I try to keep all the comments to minimum when we do movie night, because sometimes I'm just like, no, that was lazy. They could have written that better, or this could have been shorter, or this could have been punchier, or they should have described it this way. Why didn't they do it? So I try to keep those to myself because, yeah, it is writer brain running rampant. It takes away the fun out of watching a movie for sure. For the other people, for the writer, it's like awesome, like, you know, because you're basically analyzing. Here's what it is: when a writer watches a movie, when an author watches a movie, you're basically learning. You're analyzing and you're studying. The writer brain never turns off. So anything that you see in a story. So, and then the other thing is that if it's not written really well, and I've seen movies like that, you can anticipate what's going to happen, and usually you can, you know. But that's only because of the time that you've been doing things like that. So yeah, Glenn says, yeah. See, Kirsten says, and I see what's coming. Yeah. Do you believe they wrote it like that? Yeah. Oh, look, see, I knew that was going to happen. So. Watching a movie with a writer sounds a lot like going to a live play with a theater teacher. Yes, very much so. I've had that experience, which is my situation when I go to a play with my wife, who is a retired English and theater teacher. Yeah, I feel for you, Glenn, but that's exactly the perfect analogy of watching a movie with a writer. Because a movie, at its core, is the writing, all right? What makes or breaks a movie, aside from the acting, the casting, everything, we've all seen great actors in horrible movies, right? So at the core of the movie, the film, is the writing, right? And so a writer sees a movie and you can tell, like, there have been movies where I've stopped and gone, and I've paused the movie just because of a line that was said, and you go, that was an excellent line. Wow. Like, it just stops in your tracks. You go, wow, that was great. On the flip side of that, there have been movies and lines that go, why would they even, how did that get past any kind of edits? Because that was horrible. Why would you have this character say that? So it's both sides, right? The medium is a little different, but at the end of the day, or at its core, a movie is its writing, right? So when an author checks in and starts watching a movie, it's hard for us to put our writer brain to the side. It's really hard. Not impossible, but really hard. The only thing that kind of manages that is when the movie's above par, when it's excellent. Then you can kind of just get into the movie. But even then, it's like you kind of still, there's a part of your brain analyzing everything, you know? Like, that angle didn't work, or, you know. It's like that, because think about an author. An author is a writer, a director, a producer, stage, costumer, everything. An author does everything that's in a movie in a book. So the author's brain looks at everything. You know, like, I wouldn't have dressed him that way. If he was that kind of character, I would have had him wear this. An author could do all of that because that's what an author does in a book. Every part of a movie is in a book. And that's why people say the book is always better than the movie, because that correlation of taking a story that's in your mind and then making it a movie, something is lost in the translation. Put it that way. Yes, Chris, movies are made or killed on the editing floor. It's true. Like, how would you explain it in a modern way? Like The Witcher that I'm currently watching. There are parts of that show that I love, that are great. There are parts of that show I'm like, yeah, no, not so much. They shouldn't have done that, you know? Glenn, it's really tough. I can tell you from the writers that I know, it's tough for us to sit down. I think the only way a writer can really enjoy and cut loose if a writer goes with other writers to the same movie. Because then it's just like a critique session, you know? So, but it's tough for a writer. It's been my experience that it's tough for a writer to enjoy a movie because that brain is always doing that. Linda, thank you so much for being here and visiting us. And have a great rest of your weekend, Linda. We're going about wrapping it up because we got about 2 minutes left, guys. And the time has flown, you know? Yeah, Paige, see, it's like, yeah, the director's cuts. Like, the reason the director's cuts even come out is because it allows the director to express more, to show the audience more of what they wanted to express in the story. I didn't see Snyder's Justice League, because I just didn't. I wasn't really enthusiastic to see it after Batman versus Superman. So DC has really dropped the ball on their stories, and I really enjoy DC as a world, right? So when Snyder's cut came out, everybody was saying it's so different, it's much better, because he was given more leeway to express the story. Yeah, it's tough to enjoy science fiction movies for science nerds. Forget it. It's like the hearts, because that's even harder, because they start debunking everything. I've watched science fiction movies with science nerds, and like, that wouldn't work like that. Nope, that wouldn't work like that. The tolerances for that wouldn't be that. Oh no, this would never fly. So it's like, you know, I grew up both, Jim, Marvel and DC and Dark Horse and a whole bunch of independents. So I just grew up loving comics and graphic novels. Darren says, have you played the Witcher game? Yes, I played the game before I ever saw the series, and I can't even, they're two separate entities. The game and the series, they're two different worlds. Yes, First Comics. Yes, I did pick those up too. I used to have a bag at my comic store that would just collect all the comics for me. So ditching Cavill doesn't help the DC. Yeah, he did a great Superman. So it doesn't, I don't know what DC's, you can see him speechless about this, because DC has a much richer world to explore in film. The characters are so much deeper, with so much more depth, with darkness and flaws. But the movies that they've put out, I'm like, what is going on? I mean, really? Jim, I used to live in Forbidden Planet. That's how bad it was. Yeah. It was like me in Barnes and Noble as an adult, me in Forbidden Planet as a young child. I used to live there. I hope it's still there. It was on 14th Street when I was growing up. I don't know if it's still there. And then there was downtown too, in the Village. There was a Forbidden Planet too. I think DC needs to jump to the left. I think they need to revamp and reboot everything. Suicide Squad was a mess. The reboot Suicide Squad was a mess. The last DC movie that I enjoyed was the Dark Knight series by Christopher Nolan. Other than that, I don't know. They've been like, what's going on, DC? So, and then Marvel has become, to talk about, Marvel has become very formulaic in many cases, in many respects. Like, you can kind of anticipate what Marvel's going to do in their movies, you know? I agree, Malcolm. When they were on the small screen on CW, they did so much better than when they were in movies. So, who says, your son says that DC has a plan? I really hope they have a plan, because right now they look like they don't have a plan. They look like they're completely lost. Even Wonder Woman 1984, I haven't watched it yet, because I'm like, why? You know what I mean? So, and then Marvel, it was smart what they did they did the 10-year thing with Marvel and ending up with Infinity Avengers and Endgame and everything. This phase 2 looks interesting with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is one of my favorite characters growing up, so we'll see. But it's like, you know, they do some things really well. Like the What If story, if you saw that was great. That could be an entire group of movies if they're willing to take the risk, you know? What if Doctor Strange decides to take over the world? Things like that. Those could be movies or vignettes if Marvel was daring enough to do that, to take that risk. We'll see. Hawkeye, I enjoyed Hawkeye. Yeah. Spider-Man is definitely a Queens guy. I like Spider-Man just for that reason. But Hawkeye was good. I enjoyed it because it wasn't a superpower, overpowered. It was a great story without all of the CGI, you know? Yeah, Doctor Strange is my entire... Look, I'll tell you how much I like Doctor Strange. This was given to me as a gift long ago. This sits on my desk telling me to create the magic. So, Doctor Strange is the man. So, yeah. All right, guys, we're gonna... Oh, jeez, this time goes by so fast. I don't understand how this time goes by so quickly. Thank you all for being here. And those of you that had to leave, thank you for being here and I want to wish you all a fantastic weekend. Rick, thank you. Made like a nice cameo, special guest appearance. Thank you for being here, Rick. Yeah, that's a Steve Ditko era, Doctor Strange, Jim. Listen, guys, I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna say it until we don't need to say it anymore. Stay safe, all right? Get your vaccine. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Be safe out there. If you have to get boosted, get boosted. If you're not gonna take the vaccine and that's your choice, but then by all means take every precaution you can not to get yourself sick and not to get your family sick. Big O, take a great day. Come in earlier next time, Big O. So the other Orlando Sanchez you see there is my namesake and my son who dropped in and hung out with us today. Thanks for being here, O. I want to say thanks to all of you for being here today. It was fantastic to have you. Fantastic to start the new year this way. We went over by 5 minutes, but that's because we just have a great time. I always say this is just like us hanging out somewhere in a large cafe. It better be a cafe because I'm going to need coffee. It is a cafe clash after all. And we're just hanging out talking and having great conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you guys. Our next one is 2 weeks from now. So I'm going to say the 15th or something like that. Let's say 7, 14, 21. So the 21st. So we'll be back on the 21st. I want to wish you all a great weekend. Stay safe. Get vaccinated if you can. If you're not, still safe, stay safe. Social distance if you have to. And above all things, be uncommon. Bye, guys.